If I could have just a second. Okay, thank you.
State of Wisconsin versus Nicholas Godejohn, 15 CF 754, signed to Judge Boring.
State by Kevin Osborne.
Nicholas Godejohn appears in person with Aaron Menden as a friend of the court. He was not evaluated yet because they weren't booked on into the jail, so it wasn't on the list, but we will do that as soon as possible.
Is it on Big Bend Road or?
No, it's in Big Bend.
What's the road?
The name of the road is Cherry Street.
Cherry.
Yes.
You have a zip code for Big Bend?
Is it 83?
53103?
No.
I believe that's what it is.
Attorney Menden, do you acknowledge receipt of the criminal complaint?
Yes, we waive its reading.
What is the state's position regarding bail?
Your Honor, Mr. Godejohn as well as Gypsy Blanchard, who will be out shortly, are charged with 2 felonies each in the state of Missouri, one of which is first-degree murder, which carries a potential of either life imprisonment or death. They have a $1 million bail in Missouri. As far as I know, the only connection Mr. Godejohn has with Missouri is that he went there to see Ms. Blanchard, and while there, at her behest apparently, that's just based on his own statement, he did stab to death Gypsy Blanchard's mother. They then fled that jurisdiction, taking a bus back to Wisconsin. Strangely enough, they took the murder weapon, apparently put it in a parcel and mailed it back to Big Bend so that it wouldn't be discovered in Missouri. Given the cash bail in Missouri, given the fact that he's fled that jurisdiction already and has no known ties to that jurisdiction, and perhaps most importantly, based upon the fact that he has a $1 million cash bail there, the state would ask for the same here. The state's request is $1 million cash bail with the condition that he have no contact with Gypsy Blanchard.
And Attorney Menden, you had an opportunity to review the document?
I did.
Okay. And what is your response regarding bail?
We don't have any position in bail state.
Okay. Having had an opportunity to review the information submitted in court today, court does believe that substantial cash bail is warranted and is ordering cash bail in the amount of $1 million. Conditions of the bail are that the defendant have no contact with Gypsy Blanchard. He's also ordered not to leave the state of Wisconsin under his own power. So if he's transported by police, that's obviously a different scenario. With regard to a preliminary hearing, are you prepared to address that today? I'm sorry, it is an extradition.
That's great.
So we'll get you a date in front of Judge Bourne.
Thank you. That's great. That's fine.
State of Wisconsin versus Gypsy Blanchard, case number 15 CF 755, assigned to Judge Bourne.
State by Kevin Osborne.
I have just one second. Okay. Gypsy Blanchard appears in person with Aaron Menden as a friend of the court.
Attorney Menden, do you acknowledge receipt of the criminal complaint?
Yes, we waive its reading.
What is the
State's position regarding bail.
Your Honor, the state is once again requesting cash bail in the amount of $1 million. That's the bail in Missouri. I would note that this Individual is alleged to have conspired with Nicholas Godejohn and asked him to stab her mother to death so that they could be together, and stole money from her deceased mother's safe and fled the state of Missouri, coming to the state of Wisconsin. She has no known ties to the state of Wisconsin other than her relationship with Mr. Godejohn. At this point in time, she's looking, just as Mr. Godejohn is, at 2 felony charges, most significantly one being first-degree murder, where the penalty is life imprisonment or death. So given those factors, the state does believe she is a substantial flight risk and would ask that the court impose the same bail that Mr. Godejohn got of $1 million with conditions not to contact Mr. Godejohn and not to leave the state of Wisconsin, except as, I guess, if they are ultimately extradited.
Any amendment?
No comment today.
Having reviewed the criminal complaint, court does believe that $1 million cash bail is warranted based upon the allegations. Court is ordering $1 million cash bail. Conditions are that the defendant have no contact with Nicholas Godejohn. She's also ordered not to leave the state of Wisconsin unless she is under a police escort. And we'll schedule this in front of Judge Bourne.
It'll be that June 29th at 8:30 in Branch 1.
So someone will come see you in the next 2 days and it's for you to look at, okay? Okay, this way.
In June of 2015, were you in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Did Nick know you were in a wheelchair?
Yes.
Why were you in a wheelchair in June of 2015?
Because my mother forced me to be in one.
Were you ill during this period of time?
No, sir.
What illnesses did you believe you had?
Cancer. Muscular dystrophy. I needed glasses. I needed hearing aids. Seizure disorder. And I can't remember what else.
And what was your mom doing that caused you to be more desperate?
Things were getting physically and more physically abusive. The hitting was more. The starving was more.
How did Nick know when to do this crime, time-wise, that morning?
I told him.
Who planned this murder?
I did.
You mentioned that how the murder was to take place, that was all up to the defendant, correct?
That is correct.
And it was the defendant that told you he wanted to stab your mom.
Correct.
And it was the defendant that told you he wanted a knife.
Yes.
The defendant, since it was his idea on how to kill your mom, he also wanted tape and a taser, correct?
Yes.
We're calling in the state of Missouri versus Nicholas Godejohn. The jury has announced that they have reached a verdict as to both counts. Mr. Perry.
Judge, in speaking with Mr. Godejohn about the issue of if it is first-degree murder, and I know none of us know what the verdict is going to be, obviously, but if it is first-degree murder, in view of the fact that it's an automatic life without parole sentence on count 1, that he's going to waive jury sentencing with regard to count 2, which would be the only one which they would have any discretion. If it is a second-degree murder or an involuntary manslaughter on count 1, he will not be waiving that.
All right. Mr. Godejohn, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear the answers to the questions about to be asked of you today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You can put your hand down. Now, previously, have you had enough time to talk about it with Mr. Perry?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Perry, do you believe that your client fully understands his right to jury sentencing and the effect of waiving it in the event that a first-degree conviction is returned on count 1?
I do, Judge.
Mr. Patterson, on behalf of the state, do you have any objection to that process?
I do not object to that process.
All right, we'll get the jury in here then. Okay. Thank you. Please be seated. I'll address my remarks to the foreperson. Have you arrived at a unanimous verdict as to both counts in the case of the state of Missouri versus Nicholas Godejohn?
Yes, sir.
Would you pass down the file folders, please? Thank you, Gary. Court has reviewed the verdicts and finds them to be in order. It will now announce the verdicts. Find the defendant, Nicholas Godejohn, guilty of armed criminal action as submitted in instruction number 10, signed by the foreperson. Ladies and gentlemen, because only the foreperson signs the verdict forms, I must poll the jury. You'll be asked the following question: are these your verdicts? If they are, answer in the affirmative, yes. If they are not, simply say no. The jury's verdict is unanimous as polled. Ladies and gentlemen, when we started this matter, I told you that we would be having jury sentencing as to the counts in the event of a guilty verdict. The defendant has waived jury sentencing while you were deliberating. As a result, there will not be a need for you to deliberate further today on this case. The admonitions that I gave you earlier about speaking to anyone about the case are lifted. You are free to speak to whomever you choose. If you elect not to, that's fine too. Simply say, I don't wish to speak about it. There are two caveats though. First, you should only discuss your thoughts and views on the trial. Leave it to your fellow jurors if they wish to discuss their views. And secondly, you should never discuss with anyone your deliberations in terms of how the voting went. But with that, I know I speak on everyone in this courtroom. I want to thank you for your service. It's been a long 6 days for each of you. It's, well, frankly, the jury system would not be able to function without individuals such as yourselves willing to serve as jurors in these very difficult cases. If you'd like, my bailiff will take you downstairs and you can check out with Anthony. If you want to visit with me after I have about 5 minutes, I have to speak to the attorneys about something. If you want to wait in the jury room, some of you or all of you, I'm happy to come back and try to answer any questions that you might have. But I'll leave that up to you to decide. All right? But again, I want to thank you. So please rise. And Gary, for those who want to go downstairs, Cassie, will you take them down? Yeah. And for those who want to wait, I'll be back in about 5 minutes. Please be seated. Since the jury has returned the verdicts of guilty, Mr. Perry, I'll set the time for filing of new trial motions to December 11th. That's including the extra extension of time. If the state wishes to file a response, they should do so by January 4th. I'll order a sentencing assessment to be prepared, and we'll set this for sentencing on January 18th, a Friday, if you're available, Mr. Perry.
Judge, I'm not.
All right. It will be sometime in February then.
That's fine, Judge.
That would be February 22nd. And we may need that much time anyway,
Did you say the 22nd?
if that works for
That
your
works.
schedule. Does that work for your schedule, Mr. Patterson?
Yes, sir.
February 22nd then, at 11 a.m. Parties will withdraw their exhibits and retain them. Is there any further record, Mr. Perry?
No, Judge.
Mr. Patterson?
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you for your work in this case. I know both sides have worked very hard. We're in recess.
Make one request.
Yes.
To have his father.
I'm-
I'll do that.
I'm not permitted to allow that anymore. I'm sorry, Mr. Perry. I am abandoning him to the custody of the jail. We're in recess. Is there anything you'd like to say before I pronounce sentence?
Maybe a little.
Yes, sir.
When this whole thing happened, like I've said it before in my statements, it's very much the truth, so I'll just say it again. When this whole thing happened, all I ever really wanted to be is with Blanchard. That's all I ever wanted to be. I've never known what it was like to have a motherly love. I've never known what it's like to have a female connection. I've never known any of that. None of it. Because I've never known it, that's part of the reason why I strive so hard to get it. So much to the point where I don't even understand what it even feels like to have a female connection. It's missing. It's a missing link. It's always been a missing link. It's always been one. And that's the reason why, I guess, when I got so deep into this situation where I fell in love so deeply, they do say, and they've always said it, love is blind. They've always said that. Well, I'll admit it, I was blindly in love. That was always very much the case. It was always that way. So, I understand that you're a fair judge. I've heard it from both my attorneys. And all I ask is just for mercy, please.
Is what?
Mercy of any form. That's all I ask.